This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
Well, today we went down to Shady Side, and I come here with my head hanging low in shame and embarrassment because personally, I have never been to the Captain Avery Museum, and I am here now, and I am so excited about it. But we are here with Elena Lil-Yule, who is the executive director, and Peggy Oriani, who is one of the board members of this hopefully not forever hidden gem in South County. And I want to thank you guys so much for inviting me down here to learn a little bit about the Captain Avery Museum, as well as some really exciting exhibits and events that are coming up. The museum offers just such a wonderful insight into Southern Anne Arundel County history and the watermen and the bay and everything else here. It never surprises me how deep the county goes in the history as the more I learn about it. Tell me a little bit about this. I know that the museum as the museum is fairly new in terms of big picture. It was founded in 1984, which is still pretty old, but it goes way back when. I mean, who is Captain Avery?
Sure. Well, first, I think Captain Avery would be absolutely surprised that there is a museum named after him. You know, he was a waterman, a Long Island waterman, and he came from a long family history of watermen, and they had overexploited the oyster beds in Long Island, and then they moved down to the Chesapeake, and he married a local girl and raised a family of, so they had 9 children, 7 survived infancy.
And this was his house, presumably, right?
Yes.
And what brought him down here? Was he here now that they depleted the oyster beds up in Long Island? They were going to come down here and try to do the same thing now.
Yes, it happens worldwide. You know, with tragedy of the commons.
Right.
And so he came down during the height of the oyster boom, when railroads, refrigeration, canning, lots of technology occurred where there's great demand and they're able to ship the oysters worldwide.
You know, I learned a whole bunch about that oyster transportation thing up in Havre de Grace, up on the north side, about how the railroads played such an important role to be able to get from the Chesapeake Bay. And gosh knows we have plenty here, you know, it's the Bay of Plenty, if you will, to take it all out to the west and the west coast and everything else by rail. It was kind of very fascinating the more I dig into any kind of history here.
His original house is the room on the end of this building. So that is the one-room house that he built, where I don't know how many children he packed in there, but it was only one room with an exterior kitchen, and he had a loft, stairway with a loft. And then they added on the second room. So you can visit those 2 rooms and then proceed into the larger, more modern area.
Where did we go from here? I mean, Captain Avery is no longer around, but because that was way back in the mid 1800s. And we've only become a museum in 1984. So what did we do for 100 years?
So the property stayed in the family for 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And then the house itself was sold to a group of primarily Jewish Masons in 1920. Now, this is a really interesting story. A lot of people don't realize this, but during that time, during segregation, Jewish community was also excluded from white beaches, white hotels, white businesses. So it was a multifamily venture that purchased the property, and they were able to enjoy what everyone in America at the time was doing. They had more leisure time, more money. They wanted to have vacations. They wanted to recreate. And so the Chesapeake Bay was a great location for people in D.C. and Baltimore to come down, enjoy boating, fishing.
Why not?
Yeah. Just to recap, so the property was originally purchased by a group of D.C. Masons, but over maybe 15 years, it gradually became more and more Jewish families joined and became the primary users of the property, and they rechristened the property Our Place as a way to signify that this was their recreational haven at a time when they really had no other choice.
Southern Anne Arundel County is, though, because they were very rural and everything else, but they, in many ways, they were like at the forefront of this whole integration thing with both Blacks and now, as we're learning, you know, with the Jewish people. I know Hardesty Funeral Home over in Galesville was the very first funeral home in the state to be integrated and to accept deceased Black people. And at the time, they did have two separate they still have them, but there were two separate entrances, of course, but they were allowed to keep, or they made a decision to be able to have services for whites and Blacks in the same building, which was really sort of promote. And I know that their tie was from some gypsies that lived here. They used to be a blacksmith shop, and they came from Shady Side across and said with a string, we've got an infant that died and he's this big. Would you be able to make a coffin for us? And that's how they got their start. They made the coffin, and then they started coming over with bigger strings and different measurements. And then they realized that there was probably more money in funeral homing than there was in blacksmithing. But they still have the original string from back when that came out. I forget what the date was, but
They have a remarkable story. Yeah. Yeah.
it's, but to sit there and see that, that South County and is just so embrace of that. And I mean, I'm sure it wasn't very easy over the years. I mean, we look at what happened at Cars Beach and Eltonia Beach, and, the segregation in general.
I think it's hard to generalize about it. There are many different stories. I think in Shady Side, certainly during Captain Avery's time, it was such a rural community, and the waterman's life is so difficult that people really had to depend on each other. And the African-American community and the white community coexisted and interacted and were neighbors and friends. And then there was that period of segregation. And I mean, we have some oral histories, and the people talk about, well, I went to one school and my neighbor went to another school. And as children, they didn't quite understand why that would happen. But as adults, what we are exploring is how innovative and inventive and resilient these various groups were in creating an opportunity for relaxation and amusement that their families and friends could enjoy. There are a couple instances in the exhibit where the entrepreneurs even owned the entire transportation pipeline to bring people to their amusements. One example, I believe it was Browns Grove, where he provided steamship service from Baltimore, just so people could get there and not have to deal with segregation and, being singled out on the railroads.
That's wild.
It's great. It
Yes.
really shows very modern thinking.
You guys started in 1984. So how did Captain Avery Museum end up with our place?
So our place was the name that the Jewish families gave the property. And when they were ready to sell the property, the group that purchased it was the Shady Side Rural Heritage Society. And over time, that name changed to Captain Avery Museum. I think there was a desire to really focus on the really old 1860s days. There was an exhibit at one time that did focus on our place, but what we'd like to do now is really bring that whole sweep of history into focus and show that this property is unique in that it started out with the relationship to the water of being, producing oysters, and that could be a means of livelihood, to the transition to recreation and how people were inventive in gaining access to that despite challenges.
Well, that sort of brings up the exhibit that is being featured here right now, which is Spark, which is one of 6 stops at the Smithsonian Institution. It's a traveling exhibit, and it's talking about how local, just ordinary Joes are able to innovate and bring things to life. And that's sort of the entire story of where we are today. And I do want to point out that you guys are on the list of National Historic Register places. So you've got the document and the chops to back it up for sure. But, and I think it's, you're talking about the Heritage Society that started, I mean, again, very similar to many other places. It started with the vision of a couple people that said, hey, there needs to be something done here. And that's we should all be eternally grateful to those people to have that foresight to do that, because bulldozers are easy to come by, but saving something like this is obviously worth it. But this Spark exhibit, okay, this is here through October 5th.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a couple more months on this. And this is really, like I say, a big deal, because there are 6 locations in Maryland, right? And it's in sort of cooperation with the Maryland Humanities.
Yeah. So we are honored to be one of 6 small museums that was chosen by Maryland Humanities and the Smithsonian to host the Smithsonian's Museum on Main Street, Spark Places of Innovation. So it will be here for 6 weeks, and then it'll move on to another location after that. The exhibit is produced by the Smithsonian, and then Maryland Humanities coordinates deployment and management of the path through Maryland.
And I will say, I mean, you're saying it's here through October 5th, and I probably should point out the hours. The museum is open Wednesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then again on weekends from noon to 5 p.m.
That's correct.
And admission is free.
Free, yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
No.
But the exhibit is really kind of interesting. I mean, it looks at rural communities, and this is where we are in Shady Side, across the nation, and how people had really innovated and solved local problems. Old historic farmsteads up in Vermont that may have solar panels on the roof, and it just highlights the innovation to how do we solve this, and well done to be able to bring it here.
Yeah. We're really excited to have this level of storytelling here in Shady Side.
Well, everybody should get down to Shady Side at some point in time. I mean, it's not that far. I mean, I will say I was running a little bit late, and I'll say that it's just 32 minutes from Annapolis.
Yeah, it's huge.
And
it's a beautiful ride too. It's absolutely gorgeous, rural landscape, horse farms.
It's very easy. If you get into Edgewater, you go down Central Avenue, hanging right on Muddy Creek Road. Just keep going straight on Muddy Creek Road. Eventually, signs for the Captain Avery Museum are going to pop up. Real easy to get here. Plenty of parking, and you couldn't ask for a more exquisite location right here on Parish Creek, maybe?
West River.
It's the West River.
West River comes into the Parish Creek too. It's around the right, aren't I? It's right at that corner. Yeah. So when you do come down, you get to enjoy our beautiful exhibits, but bring a lunch, pack a lunch, and enjoy the beautiful view. Our lawn, our native sustainable landscaping.
There's plenty of things to learn, to see, and to experience when you come down here. And you've also got your other exhibit, which is your exhibit, the Buyboats to Beaches. I guess my first question is, what is a buyboat?
Captain Avery was a buyboat captain. Now, a buyboat is a larger boat, a sailboat that they use to go to each individual oysterman on the bay. They would purchase their harvest, and then they would fill up the boat. And once it's full, they would go up to more urban areas and sell the catch to the market. Yeah. So So it's the wholesaler.
They're very lyrical with their names of their boats.
Yes. Yeah.
In essence, way back in the 1860s, that Captain Avery would go out and hit buyboat to all of the other watermen that were dredging and tonging for oysters, give them the money. Makes everybody happy there. Load it all up and maybe sail it up to Annapolis to McNaspy's.
Yeah. Annapolis or Baltimore, actually.
And then at that point would get on, packaged or canned and sent out to the chains and restaurants. And
So the buyboat captain had to have a bigger capital investment, I think, just for the size of the boat and to be able to pay the watermen. And then it benefited the watermen because they could stay out and bring in another harvest. So each person had a role in making this supply chain function.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because when you go out with your small oyster boat, and you might be done by 10 a.m., but you get a buyboat to come by, and you can go till 4 p.m.
Right. In the day when they could fill up.
True. Yeah. You've got a rail routes used right now. Thankfully, you've got the Oyster Recovery Partnership working to make the bay a little bit healthier and grow some spat to bring it back.
So the reason why we called the exhibit Buyboats to Beaches is we wanted to encompass that history of the property that started with Captain Avery on his buyboat, but it encompasses that transition to tourism and what took place here, especially before the Bay Bridge was built. This was really a mecca for everybody from Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. It was easy to get here. The bay was beautiful, a lot of waterfront. At the time, more people were starting to own cars. Roads were being built, roads were being improved. There was that national feeling of getting out into the country air, that it was healthy and beneficial for people. There was a 40-hour work week for the first time. So people had a weekend to do something with, and this was a day trip. So this was a very popular area to come to.
Oh, it's still a very popular area. I mean, we're so thankful for the bay and everything, the bounty of the bay that offers anywhere from way up north in Maryland all the way down into Virginia. So that's for sure. Now, within your Buyboats to Beaches, the Norman Gross collection, which is a series of just the different types of boats and the models of the boats that worked back in the Buyboat days and the...
Yeah. So Norman Gross is a local maritime worker. The Gross family has been in this area for generations, and they've all been maritime workers and watermen of one sort or another. Mr. Gross is a self-taught, creative guy. And
naturally talented, amazing.
And he has built these amazingly detailed models. And, anybody going to museums around here will see boat models. But what's unique about these is the level of detail and the fact that these are all boats that he has a personal connection with. So if there is a person in this model doing something, he's also produced a small write-up about who that person is and what that person is doing. And they'll be his relatives, his friends, his neighbors, and he'll have a whole written description of what is happening in this scene. So it's a very unique look back 40 years maybe of boats that he has built or worked on or seen, along with the people who have made the maritime industry function here.
That's wild. I mean, so these are boats. I mean, they're not boats of a tanker coming out of Baltimore Harbor. These are the ones that were actually plying the waters down here in Shady Side.
Yes.
These are the ones that maybe still be plying the waters down here in Shady Side.
It's a unique snapshot into the Shady Side Black maritime community.
Yeah.
Beautiful story.
Then again, in the Buyboats to Beaches, you've got all of the archival photos that, and that's coming from your library of, just the history that goes back to 1860 of, when this was our place and, and how it's really moved on from Captain Avery's one room all the way up to here. Again, the hours on that was Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 3, weekends from noon to 5. And that goes through October 5th, coincidentally, when the Spark exhibit leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take a winter break.
Not really.
You don't.
No.
But you're not open to the public during the winter?
The museum is closed unless we have special events. Like, for example, our next big event is the Oyster Festival on the 18th. And then over the winter, we have some holiday events. Tea with the Sugar Plum Fairy.
Oh, fun.
And the Nutcracker Prince performed by the National Ballet Institute. And then we have our winter luncheon series every Wednesday, January through February. And we are going to be further exploring this idea of innovation, local agents of change, more of the story that we're covering in our exhibit. And then, it continues and continues. But the exhibit space itself.
But the exhibit space is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me about this Oyster Fest. You said this was October 18th?
Yeah.
And you've done this for a couple of years, right?
Oh, we're on our 28th. It's an annual festival.
Tell me about it.
I feel like it's a homecoming for the whole Shady Side and then, surrounding communities. And we celebrate our maritime heritage.
And so we have food vendors. We have the Anne Arundel Watermen's Association here shucking oysters for us. We have local bands. Well, this year we'll have two stages, 6 different musicians playing. It's basically continuous music all day. Yeah, from 11 to 5:30. And you'll notice we have a courtyard area close to this building, and then we have a more street side parking area with native gardens in between. We'll have craft vendors on both of those areas, and we'll have off-site parking for visitors. So this whole area, including our waterfront area, will be part of the festival map.
How large is this property in acreage? Do you know?
3/4 of an acre. Was it 0.69? 0.67 to be exact.
It seems a lot larger. I mean, you guys have done a wonderful job. I mean, and I parked out in the outer lot where I can see the natural plantings and the native plants. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful location. And I would suggest people putting that October 18th date on the calendar. It's coming up fairly soon, but for the Oyster Fest down here, it'd be a good chance.
Let me just add, the Oyster Festival, there's plenty for families to do. So there's going to be lots of kids' activities. Our other educational partners will be here with demonstrations and activities for them to do. What else? Crafts. The food is the big draw. We have a few local restaurants who always come and offer Chesapeake Bay favorites. But the Anne Arundel Watermen's Association shucks, I don't know how many bushels of oysters right on site and serves them.
There you know, because you're referring to them as bushels as opposed to individuals.
Yeah. And then we also have other things. We have a bake sale. We do a raffle. And one of the big events for the museum is the board members and other people make rather substantial and creative donations to the museum. And then we offer those for sale at under market prices. So we'll offer things like boat rides and landscaping packages and vacation home rentals and dinners and stores, places.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys are primarily then supported by donations and memberships. And Elena, as the executive director, you're the one that goes shaking the bushes for like grants and everything else that we can do.
Yeah, and Peggy is our chair of our grants committee, so she's there fighting with me.
The expert grant writer.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about expert, but we certainly try.
Well, you get your share. I mean,
we do,
and you're certainly making a name for yourself with the Smithsonian. Says, hey, we want to bring our traveling exhibit down to you, along with Maryland Humanities. So
we're doing great. I think our founders would be very proud of the direction we're going and our growth.
And Captain Avery, would you proud as well?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
He'd be shocked.
I can see him walking up here. Did he have a beard? Sounds like he probably might have had a beard.
We don't have an image of him.
Did he exist?
We know existed. Yeah, we know that.
I just picture maybe it's the old sea captain thing, but like a pipe smoking beard guy coming up going, what have they done to my house? Looks kind of nice. I like it.
Yeah.
But how can listeners support you guys? I mean, my first suggestion would be is to take the drive down to Shady Side. You're not going to regret the drive down. And when you get here, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to put it. People don't just stumble upon our property because we're at the very tip of the Shady Side Peninsula in a quiet residential area. But when they get here, they fall in love with it. The grounds are absolutely beautiful. There's been so much love put into them. And the building itself there's a charm. We have a lot to see right now. A lot to see. With the Norman Gross exhibit and the Smithsonian exhibit, we have a few artifacts from Captain Avery's time and some information on his life and his family and how he lived. And then the Buyboats to Beaches exhibit about the communities. You can really make a day of it. And probably we haven't really talked about the waterfront enough, but we do have a pier that's just been rebuilt and beautiful West River views all the way to the Bay Bridge.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And our property is open daily, dawn to dusk. And we are one of the very few peers of open public water access.
No, but one of the things that I love about South County, and particularly this area, and as historic as Annapolis will be, and I don't mean to, poo-poo Annapolis. I mean, they are very historic and they date back to this time, but Annapolis is a city. Annapolis is bustling. Annapolis has commerce. Annapolis is just, is a larger place. When you're driving down Muddy Creek Road and, and your address here is actually, it's kind of funny. It's east-west Shady Side Road. I'm like, Victor mind, is it east or is it west?
I know. It's like a sci-fi.
But when you get down there, it's hard to describe, but you really seem to be transported into a different time. Things move a little bit slower. The breeze is a little bit cooler. The waves seem a little bit more calm as they lapping up against the shoreline. And I don't know what it is about South County, but it's really very refreshing. I mean, I know every psychologist will tell you, if you're getting all stressed out, go out and walk in the fresh air. This will cure whatever ails you.
I think so. We hope we can retain that. There's interest is rising. There's a lot, I would say, of new construction. People are discovering the area, and we hope they don't discover too much or change too much because we enjoy the rural feel. Yeah, our community works hard to preserve that. And one of the things we haven't talked about, but another part of our interpretive theme here is looking at stewardship of the environment. I think right now, Shady Side in particular, because the land is slowly settling, the shorelines are eroding, and the storm is rising. The land cannot take a lot more development. And so, part of our education here too is to understand, simple things that homeowners can do to help with stormwater management, the environment. And that really fits in with all of the history here that, okay, in the 1860s, people were watermen, and then there was tourism, and now there is tourism, but we need to protect what we have. We need to understand the delicate nature of our land, what's going on with erosion, what's going on with the water quality and climate change, and really work to preserve that.
If we're not protecting it, we run the risk of losing it. And I would hate to think of a world where my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren or my great, whatever it may be, how many greats you want to put in front of there, have no idea what this is. And I know I was at the Taste of Anne Arundel, which is the Economic Development Corps thing it did. And the Secretary of Agriculture was saying how disheartening it was when he goes into schools talking about to kids and saying, hey, so where does food come from? And like, well, Giant and Safeways, and down here it'd be Christopher's. And he's like, no. Let's talk about the day. Let's talk about farms. Let's talk about, wheat and cows and stuff like that. He says, it's even more disheartening now when I go in and you ask them and they go, oh, Uber Eats or, Grubhub or whatever it is. That generation is starting to lose that. And we have to hold on to it. We have to hold on to be able to see our past, to see where we're going in the future. That's, I totally laud your insistence on that.
Thank you. So I say this all the time. One of the things I find most interesting about our property and our interpretive plan is that this property experienced this 3 centuries of Chesapeake Bay. It embodies all of how our relationship to the bay has evolved. You have watermen, that lived here. And then over time, there's this change of people coming to the area for recreation. That happened here on our property. And now this real urgent call for stewardship. The building itself has been moved back from the shoreline. We have documentation for 2 times. We believe it was 3 times. So this, understanding shoreline erosion, understanding how stormwater is affecting the quality of the bay, all of this stuff is so important. But I want to go back to is that this property has experienced and embodied all of these changes. And that is so cool and so unique. And that we can talk about it all here in one location.
It is. I'm amazed that you said that the building has been moved back, 2, perhaps 3 times. the problems that we're facing today are certainly not unique. If, 100 years ago, they said, well, gosh, we need to jack this place up and slide it back 30 feet to make it a little bit more secure for whoever is going to be living there.
Oh, it's interesting. So in the 20s, that's when all these bulkheads, that was like the way of preventing. And now we're understanding that is not effective management. And so understanding reverting back to restoring the shoreline.
Sure, even natural shorelines and even riprap's not fawned over anymore.
No.
You've got a wonderful front yard, maybe it's a backyard, I don't know, that runs on one side of the building out to the West River.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys perchance rent that out, or is this a venue?
Great question. Absolutely. We do rent out our property, the entire property, for whatever celebration you have, weddings. It can also be used for, business retreats, business meetings.
That's fantastic.
We hosted a lot of weddings.
There's very few places that would rival this view.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Or the price.
And you guys just essentially just rent the facility, right? And you don't get into the catering and all of the televisions.
Yeah, we have a caterer's kitchen. So you can actually cook on the property, but
right. Yeah. But I mean, if I'm getting married, I mean, I find a tent guy and I find a table guy. The caterers, I bring a band, and
correct.
You've got the parking. You've got wow.
Yeah, so we'll close off the property for your private event, and it's yours.
I think everybody should take a look at the website. Okay, the website is CaptainAveryMuseum.org. Very simple. Better yet, come down to 1418 East West Shady Side Road in Shady Side, and the simple directions is follow Muddy Creek Road all the way down till you see the signs for the museum, and follow that there. And it'll very, very easy. I mean, there's probably about 3 turns once you leave Edgewater, if that. Get down here and see the Spark exhibit. Smithsonian, there's not many places that you can see it, and we're fortunate to be able to have one here in Anne Arundel County down here at the Captain Avery Museum. And then while you're here, certainly check out the Buyboats to Beaches exhibit. Again, that date, October 18th for the Oyster Fest. And what's the admission on the Oyster Fest?
$10 for members.
Okay. And what's membership cost?
Membership starts out at $30 for the year and goes up.
Why would anybody not be a member on that?
I know it's very affordable. It's very affordable.
And do you have a need for volunteers?
Always.
Okay. So you can come out and if you are a history buff, you can learn all sorts of great history. And I know you had a wonderful docent that met me down at the door and led me up here to speak with you guys. So donate, become a member, volunteer.
Visit us, fall in love with us. You will.
That's easy.
Promise.
That's easy. Well, I want to thank you guys for the education. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come down here and see. I do apologize for never having been here. This will not be my last time for sure. And again, everybody, CaptainAveryMuseum.org, and that's AVERY, in case anybody doesn't know how that's spelled. Come check it out, and come check out these great exhibits. And I guess we'll see you here on October 18th at the Oyster Fest.
Great. Thanks, John.
This has been a bonus podcast from Ion Annapolis. Please visit us at ionannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Ion Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.